Hi, everybody. Henry Ramos again with Studios on the Park, continuing our COVID-19 response series featuring very significant arts and culture leaders in San Luis Obispo County and surrounding parts. And I'm really thrilled today to have a very special guest, Emma Saperstein. She is the curator at the Harold J. Miyasi Gallery located at Cuesta College here in San Luis Obispo. Born, interestingly, and raised in a very multicultural reality. I think you grew up in Uzbekistan, a country located in central Southern Europe, if I'm not mistaken.
Asia.
Asia. And you have spent time in places like Dallas and New York and Chicago as well. You studied art in Chicago. So welcome. I'm glad that you could make the time for me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, to have the benefit of your global perspective because in the nature of the mission of the Mayasi Gallery, as I understand it, you really do focus on showcasing national and international artists and works of art that are significant at those levels. Is that correct, Emma?
Yeah, that's right. So the mission of the space at the college is to expose our students and our art lovers in the community to work from outside the area. So we really focus on bringing artists in from other parts of the country and sometimes other parts of the world.
Wonderful. And I know that you haven't been with us in this region terribly long. What is it? This is maybe your third year?
Yeah, on April 27th, it will be my fourth year living
Fourth year.
here.
Okay. Well, we're very lucky to have you. And all I can say is from personal observation and experience, you have really elevated the bar in terms of the quality and exposure that we are made available to here in the region as arts lovers. Just in 2019, I personally attended your really robust Topologies of Excess show featuring Puerto Rican artists in the post-Hurricane Maria context. And I'm aware that you did some really interesting installation and allied work with Northern California artists on this Tributaries show, excuse me. And then you did a great show with Brett Dickinson on babbling objects and indoor earthwork.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to talk about any of those during the course of our conversation as we evolve, but what I can tell you is that it really is provocative work in the most constructive possible way. And frankly, I take it you'll agree, there's really nothing comparable that we're going to find in the arts community here in San Luis Obispo County that would probably match up with the range of the works that you are showing and the artists that you're featuring.
Yeah, I mean, for but all three of those shows that you mentioned, it's funny as I'm thinking back on them, all of them sort of emerged from friendships from long ago. So the
I
Puerto
love
Rico
that.
exhibition emerged from a collaboration and friendship I had with a Puerto Rican artist and teacher when I was living in Dallas. I am always trying to find ways to continue to work with people
It's
I've worked
wonderful.
with in the past or known in the past. Brent Dickinson is a former professor of mine. The Tributaries show was an artist told me to check out a photographer's work who put together, we worked together to put together that collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it to me the curatorial experience is very personal and it's very connected to people in my existing community, um,
Mm-hmm.
a sort of conceptual existing community,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
people I've worked with in the past. And I think that's really unique. And being in such a rural community and also
Right.
such a beautiful community, it's
Correct.
easy. I think it's actually easier for me than a lot of maybe curators at other larger institutions to
Mm-hmm.
get artists to agree to come here because it's such a nice place to visit.
Not a bad place to show, and to do business with you is always a pleasure.
Yeah, and I think that there's some sort of people are inherently compelled to work with the gallery because of the sort of educational purpose and mission behind everything that we do.
Right, which is so vital, and another aspect of why the value add of your work is, very, very important to us. It's interesting that you focus on the pivotal currency of relationships driving and guiding so much of the magic that you bring to the region. And I think that's just in the nature of arts and culture. I mean, that's sort of the fluidity of how we roll together to create great art and
Mm-hmm.
culture, right? But in a moment like this where people are literally landlocked, the relationship sort of shifts, right? And I can only imagine what a hardship this has created for you, and the fact that so much of your presentation requires a degree of interactivity with the art and presence with the art. So I'm intrigued to learn that one of the responses that you have taken up that I think is very leadership and forward leaning is you surveyed the broad constituencies that you serve and asked them sort of a number of questions about sort of how they are looking to you to maybe help them in this moment, maybe how they're experiencing the moment, and maybe what the role and responsibilities of a place like the Miyasi Gallery might be in this kind of context. So could you tell us a little bit more about the instinct to just ask people where they're at? I think it's a brilliant stroke. And what are you learning? And what will it mean in terms of the information that you're getting back in terms of what Miyasi will be doing in the future that awaits us?
Yeah, I when I sent out that survey a couple of weeks ago, I was one really alarmed and delighted by the number of responses and engagement I got with that. It made me wonder why I had waited so long to survey the community in this way. Like I should be doing surveys 4 times a year and
Shouldn't we all?
hearing more from our community all the time. But I guess the instinct was a kind of a resistance to assuming that I know what people want to look at or think about right now. There are things that I'm interested in, that I'm reading and thinking about and looking about, and online projects that I'm engaging with, but I don't want to assume that other people will want to engage with those as well. And so that's sort of how I designed the survey was, what are people hungry for and what are they up for? I could put on 4 artist talks a week if I wanted to. And so just gauging sort of frequency felt important to me, and really it was wonderful to hear from the community in that direct way.
Yeah, what did you learn? What were the headlines or the highlights? What were your takeaways?
Yeah, it was interesting. I had various questions about what kind of digital curation, digital programming people wanted to see. And the sort of 4 key things that I got out of it that now dictate how my weekly newsletter is formatted are, they wanted some comic relief.
Don't we
So
all need that?
don't we all? So I try to end my newsletters every week with something funny to
That's
lift the
lovely.
spirit. They wanted to use this time as an opportunity to elevate local artists, which is not always the mission of the space. We do very few, if any, local shows.
Right.
But there's no one's saying that we cannot engage local artists and elevate their voices and their practices through programming. So I've been doing a series of interviews with local artists.
I love that. And
And
thank you
then,
for that, by the way. That's a real
yeah,
service to the community, I think.
yeah, thank you. And then they wanted to engage and hear from sort of non-local artists as well. And so every week I'm trying to do a feature, whether that's a recorded, very lo-fi Zoom conversation or
Just like this,
yeah, exactly, or a transcripted interview or a little essay. That's the ways I've been trying to engage the community.
Wonderful.
And then the 4th bucket is I'm inundated with online projects and ways artists are using the internet to respond, and full on online exhibitions. I'm going to send one out this week that I just watched today that had me weeping.
Wow, wow, that's powerful. So you're curating, but you're curating in a wholly different way now,
Yeah,
based on the circumstances. That's fantastic.
yeah, exactly.
Well, you're reflecting the kind of resilience that we kind of hope for and expect in many ways from creative people. If anyone is resilient, it's artists. But
Okay.
this is asking a lot of our community, and I think it's safe to say that we don't have anything comparable to compare it to. There really is nothing in our lifespan that would even remotely approximate the impacts that this could have, and particularly on arts and culture organizations, which in the nonprofit sector we know are already fairly fledgling. So are you concerned about the arts community being able to resuscitate in the aftermath of this crisis when the worst is behind us? What do you think we're looking at in terms of the future ahead for arts and culture?
Yeah, I have gone through stages of sort of deep concern, but I always come out to I land in the perspective that art at its core has never been about money. It's
Yes.
been about sort of resilience and creativity and ideas. And so that will no pandemic can crush that. That's impossible. And so,
Thanks for reminding us of that, Emma. That's a brilliant statement. From
yeah,
your lips to God's ears, that's exactly how I hope people will understand and interpret art going forward. But say more.
Yeah, so as long as that flame is alive, then we'll find ways to get our work in the
Hmm.
world and into the public and into the people who need to experience it. I really
Hmm.
believe that. And
Hmm.
I think back to like my guerrilla Chicago days where, I went to so many apartment shows and exhibition
Yes.
warehouses that were put up that afternoon. There's always been ways for to execute and to show people your work.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe that will continue. In the short term, it certainly will affect some of the larger venues and spaces, and obviously having an
Hmm.
in-person exhibition and a gathering around that is
Yeah.
something really special. But I know that we will be resilient as a creative community.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, your programming, I mean, obviously everything's on hold right now, and your schedule, probably like our schedule, has been upended in terms of the shows that you've been planning. How are you reacting and responding to that? I mean, part of it goes to the observation that maybe there is some room to do a little bit more local programming, which might be more accessible and practical. But in the longer term, how do you see things playing out for you?
Yeah, so we had just opened an exhibition, Amanda Gentry's exhibition, that's really immersive, and we had just had that opening, which was wonderful that we
Hmm.
did it when we were able to.
Yeah.
And then the next show is the student exhibition, and I thought long and hard about what to do. I saw a lot of institutions just outright. This is kind of the time of year in the
Yeah. Of
educational gallery world where
course.
shows are happening, BFA shows,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
most institutions are outright canceling them.
Yeah.
And so I felt really strongly, no, we will not cancel the student show.
Good for you.
It'll be different. It'll look different.
Right.
But the applications are open. I've spent the majority of my time like building
Hmm. Hmm.
building the website and the software that we
Good for
use
you.
for students to submit their work. But one thing that I'm doing with that I think is key is everybody who applies to the student exhibition is submitting a 15 to 30-second video of artist statement of them in their home studios. And so
Wonderful.
we'll have at the end of this, hopefully a really beautiful video and snapshot of our students' creative practices.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so in an interesting way, some unanticipated benefits are actually
Yeah,
resulting from this tragic moment, which that doesn't make the tragic moment better, but it does give us perspective that not all is lost.
yeah.
What do you think about the role and responsibility of artists and arts organizations, even in this moment where we're kind of all landlocked, to be more unified, to be coming together in conversation and dialogue and joint initiative? I mean, it seems like this is what artists are uniquely situated to do. Are you observing that, and are you feeling that that can be a helpful part of our recovery?
Yeah, yeah, I am. And I'm seeing, even outside of the local community, I'm seeing artists who typically don't have really engaging presences on the internet are now opening up their studios, giving lessons, giving informal artist talks.
Fabulous.
And so in a funny way, um, it's been equalizing for the often sort of elitist art world.
Yeah,
And also in it's allowed for creative people to use their creativity in other ways. Like I've seen so many artists making masks
exactly.
and using
Exactly.
their social media presence to promote public health, etc.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wonder if in that connection, because so many creative people are responding to the moment in their own creative work, if there are naturally going to be shows just built around this COVID-19
Mm.
experience that we've all been living through, because it's such a shared experience on the human global level and such a traumatic experience. What's your thinking about that in terms of how it may affect bodies of work for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think artists will be responding to this time and all the various sort of socio-political issues that have come to light as a result. That's
Hmm.
certainly something that artists are always good at doing. But also there's a sort of collective um, awareness and grieving that's happening that people will respond to.
Of
Sort of
course.
how this has affected our sort of emotional landscape, I think will be
Hmm.
I think there'll be a lot of interesting work. There always is. And I've
Yeah.
already seen some of it, and I'm going to share some of it in my newsletter this week.
Yeah, I hope that you will. Let me ask you if you would to be kind enough to share with our audience your website link. Can you just tell us what the way to get
Yeah,
to you would be virally?
yeah. So the best way to get to me virally is just to go to cuesta.edu and you'll find the link to the gallery under the community tabs, but you can also search for it, cuesta.edu, and you'll find the link to the gallery.
Wonderful. We're so grateful for your time and your leadership in the space, and hopefully this crisis will sooner than later be behind us, but I'm leaving the door open for continued conversation, and I hope that you'll keep your door open as well to come back if the need arises. Your perspective is vital and your leadership is extremely welcome. Any final thoughts you want to share with our audience before we say goodbye?
No, just I think, you know, for those artists in our community who need community during this time or need conversation or critique, that I'm really open and available to being a support system there to anyone who needs it.
Wonderful. Well, that's generous and not surprising given who you are. And I think that's something that all of our arts organizational leadership needs to extend as well, that open arm, that invitation, that sense that we're all in this together. There you have it, Emma Saperstein, a great addition to our local and regional culture, the curator at the Miyasi Gallery at Cuesta College. Stay tuned. You're going to see more exciting conversation with us in the series to come. Thanks for your staying with us, and until next time, I'm Henry A.J. Ramos, Studios in the Park, over and out.